Senator Wieckowski.
I'm trying to understand the balance between the full faith and credit clause and the extradition clause. And if I have a couple of examples, if I could get an answer. It seems to me, and I understand the messaging on this, or the impact, that the symbolic effect that this would have, even if some of these elements are determined to not be enforceable. It seems to me clear that if you're a healthcare provider in California and a youth comes into California and a doctor's giving advice and it's the activities having in California, then California's laws protect that. So actions by other states to subpoena records and pull out and extradite, pull people out to be prosecuted in Texas or someplace, at least the staff report indicates that we're in pretty firm ground. Would you agree with that?
I think so, but I'll be honest, and this is one of the reasons why this bill is so important, is because we're seeing all these different laws in a lot of different forms getting passed in these other states. Some are being put on hold by the courts, they're being appealed, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know how it's going to shake out. And some of these laws, and we're seeing it in the abortion context too, what they're proposing is to be able to reach into the other states. That, in other words, if you, whether it's around abortion or gender-affirming care, leave the state as a resident to go to the other state to do that, for example, saying that if a parent takes their child across state lines, even though the actual medical procedure is in the other state, that is a felony in the home state. There will be a legal fight about that, of course, and I don't think they can do that, but they're certainly going to try to do that because they have no boundaries in terms of the restrictions they're trying to place on people's lives. In terms of extradition, there are two types of extradition. If the crime is committed in the state that wants extradition, that's trying to pull someone back, we have certain obligations under the U.S. Constitution. If it is not so clear that it took place in that state, if it was in another state, then it can often be discretionary for that state. So those are the two types of.
Because that was another follow-up question, Mr. Chair, is that if they fled their state where it's illegal, let's just say that, and then they go to a neutral state, and then they come to California, and we're trying to provide a safe harbor, then those subpoenas or court extradition orders that would come to California law enforcement would put us on firmer ground to say, well, wait, they're seeking protection here in California, and that act did not occur in the issuing state.
I mean, the more attenuated, the weaker their grounds are. But what we're trying to do is we don't want to violate the U.S. Constitution, and nothing in this bill does. Someone, of course, can contend whatever they want in the courts. We try to be very careful not to violate the Constitution, but we want to go right up to the boundary where we legally can go to say, without violating the Constitution, we're going to do whatever we can do to say we are not going to be a party to your laws, we're not going to enforce these terrible laws, and we're not going to become an arm of Governor Abbott or whoever else is engaging in these attacks.
And in the area of like telehealth or crisis center, people call in for advice, or people want to consult with a doctor that's here, is sitting in California. And I feel like I'm in law school again. Here, our laws in California are to protect the people that are here physically in the state of California. What's your thinking on that, as far as a sheriff getting a subpoena from some judge in Texas saying this healthcare provider that never left the state of California the records to be turned over and they're supposed to be extradited?
In terms of the subpoena, I think the bill would preclude that a subpoena from being honored. In terms of the extradition, I think if they're going after the medical provider was in California. I would think that would be discretionary extradition, but of course the courts would ultimately be the ones to make that decision.
And then finally, if a California medical provider or a crisis management person actually leaves the state and goes and provides the services or the information in that state to that person, even though they're licensed here in California, and then they come back, that's on shakier grounds as far as our ability to protect those people with the within the law.
Yeah, although the bill is also designed, it's not just for people who receive services in California. So if parents allow their child to receive gender-affirming care, let's say in Texas at this point has been shutting down all those clinics, but let's say there is a clinic and they get care there, and then the state is like, we're going to prosecute you for child abuse. If they come to California, we will still do what we can under this bill to protect them. We may have limits under the U.S. Constitution, but we were going to go right up to the edge of what we're able to do to protect them and to say, unless we are absolutely forced to send you back, we are not going to send you back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.